G'day and welcome to Hooked on Sport, where each week Ben Hook reveals the most remarkable SA sporting stories from the elite to the grassroots. If you're new to the podcast and you enjoyed reading Ben Hook's column in the Sunday Mail over the years, you'll feel right at home here. In this episode, Ben tells us about several young South Australians doing great things, some heartwarming stories that you could only find in community sport. Now here's South Australia's local sports expert, Ben Hook. G'day, Hookie.
Wallace, g'day. Melbourne Cup Day. I haven't really done any research on it at all this year. Do you follow the racing?
Not really.
Great story from the weekend, Derby Day. Gold Rush Guru winning for the South Australian training arrangement. The McDonald-Lewis partnership, of course, Rebel Raider previously won for that stable when Claire Lindop famously piloted Rebel Raider home. So what a great little South Australian success story that was.
Brilliant. I think there's
winning
also
the Derby on the weekend.
Wonderful. I think there's also another South Australian group. First time since 2009, I heard this morning. South Australia have got a horse in the race.
Yeah, the map I think you're probably talking about, low
Correct.
weight. It has won an Adelaide Cup in the past. So, yeah, I don't think it's amongst the favourites, but if it could go around top 7 or 8, that'd be a pretty good achievement.
Indeed.
Dan Clarkin, the trainer.
Now, Hookie, women's soccer, the A-League started. You got a story from Adelaide United Women.
Well, I think the best story about this team, they played their first game of the weekend, Wallace. They went down 3-2 to Melbourne Victory. They've got a few injuries that they're dealing with at the moment, but they included a young kid in their leadership group this year. So they've been captained by Isabel Hodgson for a number of years, probably her 4th year as captain now. In their leadership group is Matilda McNamara and Dylan Holmes, who've both had a bit of experience in leadership. And Ella Tonkin was the 4th addition to the leadership group, a young South Australian, 21 years of age. And when it became apparent that Isabel Hodgson wasn't going to come up for the first game, they appointed Ella as skipper. Incredible story. Imagine captaining a National League team at just 21 years of age. And she's a South Australian kid through and through as well, Wallace. She grew up in the northern suburbs of Adelaide. She started playing for the Adelaide Croatia Raiders, which is based out in the northern suburbs. She only took up soccer and took it up at the very last minute. She's got 2 older brothers and both of them were playing and she thought, hang it, I'll go out and have a kick with them. She played in boys' teams. Now, that's unusual for someone of her age. I mean, a generation ago, that was really, really common, but she grew up playing in boys' teams and against her brothers. And so she accepts that she is not the prettiest footballer going around, but she is tough and hard and battle weary just from taking on her brothers. So, yeah, a 21-year-old captaining her club. I've got to say, Adelaide United are very, very good at promoting South Australian talent, uniquely lead that field. They've been quite incredible. Ryan Kiddo is the captain of the Adelaide United men's A-League team. He's another local South Australian as well. So, yeah, I just wanted to start with Ella Tonkin, 21 years of age, a member of the Young Matildas. So she's got a big future in the game, but to be offered the leadership position, yes, it's only probably temporary until Izzy Hodgson makes her way back. But what a great story, 21 years of age and wearing the armband as captain of the team that you grew up idolising as a little kid.
Yeah, great to see young South Australians going well.
Just while we're talking about young South Australians, I just picked up on this news this morning. There are 3 South Australian lads out of the local baseball program who've just signed with the Adelaide Giants. You're probably already across this, Wallace, because I know you're very big on your baseball. But Sturt Zach Altamura, Southern District's Nick Paparella, of course, his family's got a very big history in the game, and Riley Yateman from the Adelaide Baseball Club all have signed to join the Adelaide Giants, of course, back-to-back Claxton Shield winners this year. So I reckon that's a really cool story, 3 young lads joining that team.
Yeah, terrific for all of them. And interesting that, Zach, for example, came through the T-ball program.
Yeah, and isn't that great, just seeing those sorts of entry-level programs having an influence? I mean, not every kid's going to go on and make it to the National League, but the fact that, look, who knows? Young Zach Altamura may have never taken up the game if it wasn't for T-ball, and here he is now going to be going around in a professional competition. So good.
Give every game a crack and see which one sticks. Now, I've got another South Australian golfer who's shining on the professional tour.
We've talked about Jack Buchanan for a couple of weeks. I figured it was worth just spinning the spotlight around onto Jak Carter, who is quite incredible. His story is something that you might not believe, Wallace, and I've got a bit to tell you that you'll sort of open your eyes about, and then I'll get to the best bit at the end. Okay. So Jak Carter, he's not young by professional golf standards. I reckon he's 30 now, and he only turned professional in 2022. So he was 28 years of age before he turned professional. The reason why he's sort of in the spotlight at the moment, he went down in a playoff in the Queensland PGA tournament on the weekend. The reason why the Queensland PGA tournament had a bit of exposure was because Cameron Smith played in it, which was very, very cool that Cam Smith, the live golfer, decided to play in a tournament that would probably be worth in sum total what he earns in about 6 holes when he plays in a live event. So that certainly gave it some notoriety. He finished with Phoenix Campbell tied at 11 under and got into the playoff. They both birdied the first hole of the playoff. And then, unfortunately, Jak got a poor lie in a bunker. It's a par 3, the final hole that they played a second time, and ended up making 4, and Phoenix Campbell made 3. So he went down in the playoff, but it leaves him 4th on the order of merit. Now, I'll wheel back to what that means, but let's just talk about what he was doing before he turned professional. He turned pro, as I said, in 2022, age 28. Before that, he was working as a concreter. He worked in the local surf shop. He's from Karakalinga, so right down on that south coast there, which is a pretty famous surfing strip. And that was what he did very, very well. He just also happened to front up and play pennant golf for the Southern team, which was a mixture of Lady Bay, Mount Compass, McCracken, Victor Harbour, and Goolwa, I reckon it is. And they were pretty competitive in the South Australian Simpson Cup competition. Now, he was playing number 1. And that means you're playing against the absolute crack hot golfers. And it's very, very rare for someone to come out of those tier 2, tier 3 clubs to be successful at number 1. But Jak Carter was consistently beating all of the big names. And you keep an eye on that and you think, yeah, there's something interesting going on here, isn't there? So anyway, 28, decides to turn pro. He goes through the PGA Pathway program and he dominates the Associates tournaments, the trainee tournaments, if you like. He won the SA Associates Championship, wait for it, by 15 shots. He shot 9 under. The next best score was 6 over. Then a week later, he went and won the New South Wales Tasmania version of the Associates Championship and was runner-up at the Victoria Tasmania Championship just a few days later. He went on to PGA Tour qualifying. He won the first stage and finished 12th overall. That earned his card. And as I said, after his performance at the Nudgee Golf Club to finish missing out, losing the tournament in a playoff, he's now 4th in the order of merit. If you finish the season 3rd on the order of merit, just one spot he's got to climb, you win a European Tour card.
Yeah.
And that is quite incredible. Now, Jack Buchanan, we've talked about, he finished tied 6th in this tournament. He's got 450 points now, I think, and 550 probably gets it done, and he's still got another 10, 11 tournaments to play. But yeah, hot on his heels is Jak Carter, who's currently sitting 4th. Now, can I get you to the best bit?
Go. Jak
Carter has had maybe 2 lessons in 15 years. He is self-taught. And I've had a discussion with him. He says he's a field player and he only wants to learn about his own game. There's no point learning from someone else what they feel for their game. And he even tells me, and this is probably getting a bit nerdy now for golf, but if he's ever playing poorly, he just goes to the range and he starts by hitting the biggest snap hook draws that he can possibly hit. And his way of sort of building that back of just by, right, little bit less hook, little bit less hook, little bit less, just a nice draw, soft draw, dead straight. That's how he works his game back to square one. So, yeah, I've got this quote. I spoke to him a couple of years ago, and I'll just share you this quote, and that'll wrap up what we need to talk about with Jak. I looked at golf as being a fluid environment I choose to react to. I've always been lucky enough to have good hand-eye coordination, and once I got the basics, I decided to learn as much as I can about myself rather than someone else. Wow. So, yeah, I know Adrian Wickstein, who's a really smart golf coach, works with him a bit now, but I think most of it is just on the mental side of the game, and yeah, he works out all of the physics of it himself, to the point that Mark Allen, who you know, who is a very, very, very well-educated golf commentator, regards Jak Carter as the best iron player on tour right now. So that's the story, is it?
Oh, that's awesome. I remember the first playoff hole on that last event, and
it's a good story.
Phoenix pumped it to within four feet.
Yep.
And then Jak just replied. Unbelievable. Yeah, just brilliant.
Yeah, Jak hit it inside him, I think, didn't he? It was pretty close, wasn't it?
He did. You're exactly right. No, it's just absolutely brilliant. Oh, well done.
Yeah. Now, so, look, who knows? We could have Jak Buchanan and Jak Carter on the European Tour next year.
Hookie, you've identified a great failing of local golf and live.
I think this is a big mistake. So the last 2 years of Live Golf, it's been played at the end of April, and we've had no tournament for Live the week before. And I don't know if you can remember this, but I can recall very clearly Patrick Reed and Brooks Koepka and all of these big names at the footy watching gather round all the while because they had a week off ahead of the tournament. And I've always said to myself, there's a slot that we should be using to play a smaller local tournament, and any of those Live golfers who want to get some competition reps up, because that's the one thing these guys actually crave. They don't play a lot of golf anymore, and they're always saying, need a few more tournaments, need a few more tournaments. And of course, they're banned on the US tour, so they're always looking for places to play. And I've always thought to myself, in particular now that Cameron Smith has fronted up and played the Queensland PGA, he'll play the New South Wales Open next week. So, he is really heavily invested in these sorts of events, Cameron Smith. And I just wonder how many others would have been if we had a tournament on those similar lines, a WebEx Players Series event here in Adelaide the week before Live Golf. It would have worked perfectly the last 2 years, and we didn't do it. And this year we can't do it because they're playing in Saudi Arabia the week before. Now, the one obvious glitch in the schedule is that there's 2 free weeks the weeks after Live Golf. So this is a big miss by people who should know better in golf, is that there would be a classic opportunity to put together, and you could play it at one of the Tier 1 clubs. You could play it at a place like the Vines or Thaxted Park, one of those good, honest Tier 2 courses. You can even play it in North Adelaide with a bit of creativity and just get these Live guys some reps and put them up against some of our best pros and some of our best amateurs. You could have a field maybe limited to 80, 60 pros, 20 amateurs. And I reckon you would find of the 48, 50 golfers in Live, I reckon 15 would be up for it. 15 would be up for some play under tournament conditions the week before. The prize money doesn't have to be spectacular. There might be a few rankings points on it. That always helps these guys. Not that there'll be a heap of ranking points involved, but to give them competition reps in that same town that they're going to play a major tournament the week before would have been something that we could have easily done, and we've missed it this year, and it is an absolute whiff on behalf of everyone involved, and I hope they get it sorted for next year.
There's a bit of a flip in SA cricket circles.
Well, I think it's quite amazing that at the moment we're seeing the women's team struggling a little bit. They're 1-3. So they've one win from 4 games. It's only a 10-game competition, the WBBL this year, the Adelaide Strikers. But the men are positively flying. I think the women will come good. I really trust them. There's so much experience in there. Megan Schutt's been a little bit quiet to start. I expect her to come good. Talia McGrath's been a bit quiet as well, the skipper. She needs to start bowling herself, to be honest. She's a better bowler than what she gives herself credit for. But I think they'll be okay, and I expect them to find a way to make it into the top 4 at the end. But how good is it to see what South Australian cricketers are doing, both for South Australia and beyond at the moment? Let me just list where I think we're at. So we're currently about middle of the table in the One Day Cup. We've got a big game tomorrow, Wallace. We're playing Victoria. If we win that, we're right back in the running. And we're second in the Sheffield Shield with 2 wins from 3 games. So that's a really, really good performance. A draw in the other game against New South Wales. So we're sitting second there and only basically percentage points behind Western Australia. But let's go through some South Australian cricketers right now. Travis Head is arguably Australia's most important cricketer, plays in all 3 forms of the game, and whenever he performs well, Australia wins. That's generally how it goes. You look at what's happened in the past couple of years. When we did really well in the Ashes, it was because Travis Head got runs. When we did really well in the World Test Championship, it was because Travis got 150. When we won the World Cup, it was because Travis got 140. So he is the most important player across all 3 forms right now. Alex Carey has demonstrated, certainly in the last 6 to 12 months, that he is by far and away the best wicketkeeper batter in Australian cricket. Nathan McSweeney has become the Australian Test opener in waiting. Imagine if we have 3 South Australians in the top 7 playing in the first Test against India in Perth. I think that's quite incredible. Spencer Johnson, he's had some injury issues. I accept that. But I think probably at his best, he is arguably, maybe in the top 2 or 3 best white ball bowlers in the country right now. Jordan Buckingham and Brendan Doggett both did particularly well bowling for Australia A. And then I'll throw Lloyd Pope in there. Lloyd Pope spun at South Australia to victory against Victoria yesterday, took 6 wickets on day 4 in the 4th innings. Hey, suddenly he becomes a smoky to Sri Lanka, I think, for the Australian team. So Mitchell Swepson has tended to be the leg spinner they've picked. Lloyd Pope is either level or ahead of Mitchell Swepson right now. And I reckon they're going to be taking spinners to Sri Lanka for sure. That's going to be wickets that'll turn from, the minute they walk out into the ground on day one. And a bowler like Pope, who can spin the ball hard and can be very, very effective on those turning wickets. Suddenly we could see 6, 7, 8 across all three forms of the game, 6, 7, 8 South Australian cricketers playing for Australia. I think it's tremendously exciting. And on top of that, they're winning games. So very, very exciting times at the moment in South Australian cricket. They seem buoyant. They seem a really team that's excited for each other's success as well. I noticed, Wallace, in the Queensland-Sheffield Shield game that when Henry Hunt got his 100, Alex Carey was at the non-strikers end and had both fists in the air.
Yeah, okay.
I know these are just little things that I notice. And the same thing happened when Nathan McSweeney was at the crease and Alex Carey got his 100. Nathan McSweeney really celebrated Carey's 100 more than Carey did himself. Brilliant. So a lot to like about what's happening in South Australian cricket. High-performance guy Simon Inslee and new coach Ryan Harris. I think they're doing a marvellous job.
Just before we leave that, who do you think from the Sheffield Shield is going to be the biggest challenger to SA this season?
Yeah, good question. Western Australia's won the last 3, so they're hard to go past, aren't they? And they're so good on their conditions at the WACA. So South Australia's beaten good teams. They've beaten Queensland and Victoria, had a draw away to New South Wales. So to beat Queensland away, huge win. To beat Victoria, a team they hadn't beaten in 9 years, so that's 18 matches without a win against them, is pretty incredible as well. But the big challenge comes Western Australia at the WACA. Find a way past the Western Australians and people are going to be looking at you very, very seriously.
You got a cool local cricket story?
I've got 2, actually, Wallace, and I'll tell these really quickly because we like to keep this podcast pretty short, sharp and punchy. I'm going to tell you about the bloke with the most appropriate name in sport who got 100 last weekend. He's playing 3rd grade for Tea Tree Gully, playing against Adelaide. He scored 101 from 66 balls. His name, wait for it, is Bradman Fitzner. Bradman is his given name. Bit of confidence from the parents, isn't it, to say, let's call him Bradman. I reckon he'll probably be a pretty handy cricketer, but he's demonstrating as such. So 3rd grade is 3rd grade. It's a lower standard of cricket. But if you're getting hundreds at that level, you're probably a B grade or 2nd grade standard cricketer. And I'm not even sure how old he is. He looks young. I saw a photo of him, but imagine seeing Brad come up and playing for 1st grade cricket, maybe even for South Australia in a few years' time. Not the first time Bradman's played for South Australia, but wouldn't that be amazing if we saw that again in 2024-25?
Wonderful. Now, number 2.
Yeah, I really love this one. I got to thank Ben Porter, who's a mate of mine who sent me this. He's involved with the Morfettville Park Cricket Club. This is community cricket at its best, mate. There's a lad called Jason Crisp who played his 400th game for Morfettville Parks. They were chasing 229 set by Happy Valley. They were 7 for 173, so needed 57 runs to win. Jason Crisp in his 400th game was at the crease. Who walked to bat at number 9? His son, Will. 13 years of age is Will. Anyway, between Jason and Will, they hit off the winning runs. There's a big crowd there because all of the Morfettville Park members were pretty keen to see Jason in his 400th. And they got more than he bargained for, a 57-run partnership between father and son to win the game in his 400th. I reckon that's such a cool story. That's what I love about community sport, mate.
Oh, that is wonderful. And good on Ben for sharing that. Hookie, great chat. Catch you next week.
Always fun, Wallace. Good on you, mate.
Run through the finishing tape on another episode of Hooked on Sport. If you've got a local sporting story to share, send us a message via our socials or by email hookedonsportpodcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast and let your mates know about us. Tell them to search Hooked on Sport to find Ben Hook and the team. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.